Hey everybody, it's Colin Ellis here. It's Monday, the 2nd of August 2021. Welcome to my new podcast, Culture and Coffee. It's August already. I can't believe how quick time's gone, even though we're in this pandemic and not able to forward book anything to look forward to. I think that's the biggest issue with the pandemic is can't book a holiday or anything like that. First world problems, right? It's the biggest issue for me right now is I can't book a holiday. But yet the time seems to go pretty quick. I just can't believe we're August already. Classic English thing. Let's talk about the dates. I haven't talked about the weather. Maybe I'll do that for a different episode. So yes, welcome, new podcast. What I wanted to do with the podcast is kind of talk about some of those everyday culture issues that people ask me about all the time, either messages or when I'm doing, which is virtual events right now here in Melbourne, Australia. I feel the need to say Australia because I know there's a Melbourne in Florida. I think there's a Melbourne in Florida because I was due to speak at a conference there like 2 years ago, and I was going to go just to say that I've been. Of course, weird things. Look at me. I'm in Melbourne, Florida. People are like, yeah, great. So there's another place in the world called the same as your home. Yeah, we're just coming out of lockdown. I don't know, 40 or 50, 5.0, I think it is, here in Melbourne. And so virtual events, and so often I leave time for questions at the end, and people are like, "What tips have you got for helping me with email?" Which is email today. So I thought I'd record a podcast, and like short podcasts, kind of 15 minutes, the kind of thing that you can listen to over a cup of coffee. Hence culture and coffee. But I know what you're thinking. I mean, you're probably not thinking this at all, but you're thinking, but Colin, you sound English. Why is an English person drinking coffee and not tea? Now, don't get me wrong. In the summer, when it's 40 degrees here in Melbourne, there's nothing I love more than a lovely hot cup of tea. But coffee is my default drink now. When we emigrated as a family, we emigrated from the UK to New Zealand in 2007. And so a couple of things that kind of moving to New Zealand that we got to appreciate that we never got to appreciate before was firstly wine, because turns out New Zealand makes great wine. I hadn't looked into that at all before we emigrated. But New Zealand has some of the best wines in the world. Like, whereas in England, it was like red or white. Kind of that was it. I'm pretty sure that's how they label it as well. You go into a pub, it's like, oh, would you like a glass of wine? It's like, yeah. They don't say, oh, would you like a Pinot or Shiraz? They're like red or white. And then warm or cold. That's generally how we do alcohol in England. So wine, got an appreciation for wine. Fresh air. So it turns out where I'd been brought up, the air isn't that great. And so you got to New Zealand and we were like, what's that taste in our mouth? And of course it was nothing. The iron that was floating around in the air in the northwest of England was gone, and the sulfur. And we were like, wow, look, it's clean, it's fresh. Safety. No one wants to stab you, so that was good. And coffee. So I remember pretty early on, I started a job within 2 days of us arriving. I was so severely jet lagged, it was ridiculous. I was waking up at like 3 a.m. and then just couldn't get back to sleep in the days when we could travel. And one of the guys I was working with said, oh, we'll go for coffee. And we went next door for coffee, and he was just like, well, what kind of coffee do you drink? I was just like, instant. I drink Nescafe in England out of a jar. Nothing more sophisticated than that. And so I really developed this love of coffee. But if you have a love of coffee, you have to drink it black. There's still those people who's like, oh, I love my coffee. And they buy this huge thing, which is basically hot milk. And then they're like, get to the afternoon. It's like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm like, well, yeah, you're literally putting yourself to bed with your big hot milk. That's why we drink it before we go to bed. So I developed a love for coffee from our time in New Zealand. And today I'm drinking a Kenya Kagumo from Supreme Coffee, and make my coffee in I've got this fancy filter machine called a Mockmaster. My wife and I owned a coffee house in Wellington, and so yes, I'm a fully trained barista. Not that I do that much anymore. I mean, my wife was She was the best at making coffee. I was front of house, which basically meant I got to talk, which, as you can imagine, was an absolute nightmare. So yes, over a lovely cup of coffee, a Kenya Kagumo from the people at Supreme Coffee, who are based in New Zealand, I think. So yeah, so let's get talking about today's issue, which is email. And if you have got any suggestions, if there are any things that you want to find out about, I'm going to use the podcast as a way of sharing things that you can do, different things that you can do. Then you can email me at CDE, they're my initials, CDE at culturefix.xyz. CDE at culturefix.xyz, and I'll create some content and read it out. My aim is to do it weekly, although I've already got a fair few things that people have suggested, so it may end up being twice a week at the minute. But let's talk about email. I think it's by far the biggest issue that people have, is that I get too many emails, I send too many emails, email dominates my life, and of course, it's partly your fault. Can I say that? It is. It's partly your fault. I know you don't want to hear that. I know you want to blame everybody else. It's not me, it's my boss. He sends me 1,000 emails a day. There are many organisations that look at email around the world. I'd love to know how they count them all. How do they go around and estimate how many emails are sent around the world? Like, they literally can they count them? I don't know. Is there a technological way of doing it? Statista, they're one of the organisations and they do a fabulous job. Of course they do. It's people like me who write books. We lead all of that research, and so I researched email when I was writing Culture Hacks, which was a book of mine that was released at the start of the year. And they estimate there are over 300 billion emails sent and received every day. 300 billion. Now, hands up if you feel that that's what you get every day. Okay, put your hand down. It looks weird when you're doing it, listening to a podcast. 300 billion every day. And so they estimate that the average person, you shouldn't consider yourself the average person, you're better than the average person, but the average person sends 40 emails a day. 40, which is nuts. And when I think back to my own kind of permanent job, so I was a permanent employee for 30 years, kind of for the first 10 years we didn't do email, it wasn't a thing. And I think back to those halcyon days of phoning people and walking and talking. Oh, those were the days. And I do think, email is a great tool, but I think that over the years, what we've done is misused it to the point now where it's losing its efficacy. It's becoming a burden on our working lives. I'm not sure if you'd agree with that, but it is. One of the things that became popular to talk about during the pandemic, there were so many things, but was the difference between synchronous and asynchronous tools. So a synchronous tool is like a chat tool. It's something like a Slack or a Microsoft Teams, which kind of demands an instant response, right? So text messages often is a synchronous tool, whereas email, there's no need for an immediate response, so it's considered this asynchronous. Although, I say there's no need for an immediate response. Some people are all over it, right? Some people feel like they have to respond immediately. Checking their notifications in the phone. When did we become so? When did we allow technology to rule our lives rather than the other way around? Technology is there to support us, but now it's listening to our calls. It's dinging and binging and distracting us from everything. For some people, the first thing they do when they wake up is they check their email. Imagine that being the start of your day. Wait, you did that? Stop doing that. Buy an alarm clock. You don't need your phone. Why should I buy an alarm clock when my phone could do it? Because your phone seeks to distract you, because you have no willpower. So it's an asynchronous tool. So if the average person, and of course you're not the average person, but if the average person is sending 40 a day, right, then you also have to read and reply to the ones that you get sent as well, and the ones that you get copied into. Like, there's usually no way of seeing when an email drops into your inbox, whether you've been copied into, whether it's to you or whether it's been copied into, you've been copied into it. So you end up opening them all anyway, or not opening them all, right? And then you end up, because you get so many, you end up not replying to people. And it's not that you're rude and you set Wait, it's not, is it? Right, because if someone sends you an email, you have to reply to it. I haven't had time, I'm so busy. Don't even get me started. I might do a whole episode on the word busy. Oh, God. But there's no way of finding out. So you end up with this just massive stuff that you then have to deal with on top of your back-to-back meetings. Definitely going to cover that in another episode. On top of your back-to-back meetings and having to do your job. Because that's the thing with email is very rarely does it contribute to the outputs or the outcomes that you're looking for in your job. So it has been, I feel it has become a burden. Certainly in the conversations I have, people see it as a burden. Whereas back in the day, it wasn't. Back in the day, we were making movies about email that were popular. You've Got Mail, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, took $250 million at the box office. Can you imagine that now? Hey, babe, Tom Hanks has got a new movie out. Has he? Awesome. I just read Tom Hanks has signed up to do the next Wes Anderson movie, which is awesome. I love Wes Anderson movies. He's got a new movie out. Great. We should go and see it. We should. Let's book to go to the cinema. Awesome. What's it about? Well, he meets this woman over email. Sorry, what? Well, yeah, they exchange emails, and then they meet up, and then I think they live happily ever after. Okay, but the crux of the movie is about email and meeting on email. Yeah, nah, you're all right. Look, I'm sure Tom's really good, but nah, a movie about email, crazy. Would never make 250. I'd be lucky to make $250 at the box office today. The thing with the pandemic as well, and different cultures dealt with it in different ways. Going back to what I'm actually talking about, is the number of emails either increased or decreased based on how good you were at transitioning kind of to the chat tools. And I one of the things I always say is email is a great tool, providing that you agree how you'll use it for what communication, and then you're disciplined about the way that you do it. Now, one of the things that I did in my permanent jobs is I used to tell people that I don't send emails. So I'm not that kind of, my personality is one that prefers face-to-face, or else I like to pick up the phone and have immediate conversations. And I think, one of the things that you forget is you don't have to conform to cultural norms. You can be different. Difference is better than deference when it comes to culture. And you can create a kind of culture within your team where you don't send lots and lots of emails. So all it requires, and a big part of the work that I do with organizations, we agree some principles about the way that we'll work together within our cultures. It is to talk about the things that, we'll do differently. And one of those is always emails. So yes, you can and you should do things differently. So I used to tell people that I didn't send emails, with the exception of, kind of sending out documents and kind of more formal things that I need to do. But otherwise, we use tools to share documents, or we'd have conversations. I worked with, my last permanent job was in New Zealand, was working for the Department of Education. We had a great team. We were working on culture change or culture evolution. My boss there was awesome, and he used to get like 100 emails a day. He was like, Colin, he's this really old guy. He was like, Colin, how come you have no emails in your inbox, but I've got 100? I'm like, Tim, because you send 100 every single day. You send 100, so you're going to get 100 back, right? But we did. We had a great little team there, and we decided very early on that we were going to do things differently. And we created this subculture, that other people looked at and said, kind of, how are you doing things? And email was one of those things that we didn't really do, and we used different tools to share information because we found it was demoralizing to have too much email. And so, I had one senior member of staff come and talk to me and said, "Oh, we kind of love the way the things that you're doing here." And she had 1,900 unread emails in her inbox. So she said, well, what can we do? And so what we did, so I got her to send an email to kind of the key people, and she declared email bankruptcy. And so she said, today I'm declaring email bankruptcy. I've been misusing email. And she created some new rules. If you've got an email, blah, 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 blah. If you've got an email that says this, come and talk to me. If it's this, blah, 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 no, I'll file it. And we set up some rules. So here's some things that you can do. Now, these are all things that I've either done myself or I've either helped individuals with or kind of encouraged with clients, because it's demoralizing when you have too much email. So some things you can do is stop sending emails. Have a rule. Would this be better as a conversation? And then pick up the phone. Not everything has to be a video conversation. I'll probably cover that in the future as well. But just pick up the phone. I have a simple rule. Stick it on a post-it note near your desk or wherever you're working right now. Does this need to be an email? Stop sending people. Stop copying people in. Now, you do it to cover your backside. That's why you do it, right? So stop copying people in. Just an FYI. If it's an FYI, then they don't need to know. Again, another simple rule. So stop copying people into email. In your email client, most people are using tools like Microsoft Outlook, so it's all possible, is set up a rule to send everything that you're copied into a folder so you don't have to read it. Right, so everyone who wants to clog up your inbox, and then people get smart and they start sending it to you because they realize that you're doing that. So you just got to have a word with them and say, please stop sending me emails. Please stop copying me into emails. It's okay to do that, by the way. Some of you are control freaks, so you're just going to have to change that habit as well. Some of you like to get copied into emails and then consequently don't reply to emails. And so you have to have a word with yourself about that too. So set up a rule whereby it directs anything that you're CC'd into a folder. If you've got loads in your inbox right now, you can declare email bankruptcy. Because if anything is urgent, here's the thing, is people phone you, right? And then if they say, have you got that email? And if you declared email bankruptcy and sent it to the trash, just tell them that. Just be honest. I declared email bankruptcy. It's in the trash. Can you resend it to me too? And then the last thing that I'm going to recommend for your email is when you go on holiday, don't ruin the first week back by reading your email. So here's something that I used to do that you can do too that's super, super easy. Okay, so in your out of office email, you're going to say, thank you very much for your email. I'm currently away on leave. Just be aware that your email has been deleted. It's not that it's important to me. It's just that I want to be productive when I come back from leave. And set up a rule that every email you receive between the dates that you're away goes straight to the bin. So two things here. Firstly, the aforementioned, you don't have to kind of waste time when you come back in your first week from holiday. That's the first thing. And then what's the second thing? God, I got so distracted myself there thinking about the first thing that I completely forgot about the second thing. That's the first thing. Because that does, it's a massive drag just filling for time here while I try and remember the second thing. So that is that, where you just spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Oh, yes. And then the second thing is you're not getting the notifications while you're on holiday. Right? Because I know you can't help it wherever you are. The phone's there, the email. I'll just have a look at my email. When you're sending everything to the trash, that doesn't happen. All right. That's 15 minutes on email. There's about 4 things that you can do immediately. Remember, be different. Be different. Don't be the person that sends 40 emails a day. Right? Don't be that person. Be the person that chooses to be different. Send it, ask yourself, does it need to be an email? Pick up the phone, have the conversation. Or else if you're comfortable with the level of emails that you get and you're able to respond to them all in a timely manner, don't change anything. Just a couple of ideas on this morning's Culture and Coffee. Remember, if you've got any ideas, drop me a note at cde@culturefix.xyz. You can also find out more about me on LinkedIn, and you can go to Amazon if you want to buy any of my books. Look forward to chatting again soon.